Okay, I would like to take a moment to introduce Sherry McDowell. Sherry is one of our longtime clients. She's been a subscriber of JDEtips Journal since 2001, and I'll let Sherry go through her background and say a few words about JDEtips.
Thanks, Andy. I work for the Gowan Company here in the little hot city of Yuma, Arizona, but our little office here expands out across the world. We have 21 companies that are currently running on E1 812. We have operations in Europe, Mexico, and here in the U.S. There is 4 analysts that support those companies, and so we're spread thin. And we are implementing our 22nd company that is based in Chile. I've been employed at Gowan since 1995 and was the very first implementation team of E1. It actually was called One World back then, of 1998. So I've been around a while here at Gowan Company. Really enjoy, actually, I can get tomatoes thrown at me sometimes, but I actually enjoy One World, E1. But one of the reasons why I do is because of the uses that we do have out there, and one of them, my biggest one, is JDEtips. I have attended classes, the public classes for Clay & Associates, and we've also brought some consultants here on site and had the training here at Gowan as well, taking advantage of the fact that we could have 6 people in a classroom with an instructor right here in our own hometown. And that's actually when I found out about what I call my diamond, which is JDEtips. And from there, Andy was actually the first person that came here and taught us. And that's when we were using the white papers that were on JDEtips. And just to name a couple of them and the way that we've used them, we had some payment term by item that we needed to be able to do, payment terms by branch plant, and then, of course, the commission that is based by branch plant. And we thought we were asking for something, for quite a bit from Andy, and all he did was download a paper and hand it to us. And we were able to do everything that we asked for just off of this white paper. We also used JDEtips. We had 2 instances of JDE, one for our Mexico company at that time was peso, and we were afraid to do multi-currency, so we had separated those from our U.S. companies. And when we saw that Gowan was going to continue to grow and we were going to be using many currencies other than pesos, we needed to bring that instances together as one. We utilized a white paper, which is activating multi-currency after go live. We were discouraged of doing this by Oracle, but we did it successfully without any problem whatsoever, and this white paper was one of the things that we used to do that. As it was mentioned earlier, Andy's love for advanced pricing has been utilized by Gowan Company many times over with the many articles that are on JDEtips. I always call it my right-hand man of advanced pricing. Another thing that I've used is just for the knowledge base. I get in there, I start searching, and I don't have a clue how many articles I've actually downloaded, but I have my own Andy Clay library on my desktop. So I continually use those as articles to go back to and refer back to, even if I'm just getting one little glimpse of a knowledge of a table that I'm needing to utilize. The JDEtips journals, guys, I'm telling you, that is another jewel. I read it like a magazine whenever it comes out. There's a lot of articles in there. It also allows you to see the latest white papers that have been published. So it keeps you abreast of what is being published. One time I was really excited because I had gone to Collaborate, and they started talking about Red Stack, Blue Stack, and Fusion middleware. And I was so excited because all these techies kept speaking to this analyst, and I didn't know what they were talking about at one time. But because of an article on the JDEtips journal, I was able to carry on in that conversation and know exactly what they were talking about. So that's just a few of the ways that I've used JDEtips. I use it as my first resource. I mean, when I tell you my first resource, if I'm going to do something new, that's the first thing I do is look at JDEtips. The reason I do this is because they have a very clear, defined setup. I know that anybody that has been using E1 finds that they start to implement something and all of a sudden it's one little field or one little switch that you forgot to turn on and it's blowing your whole setup. With an article from JDEtips, it starts from the beginning of setup, and it also allows you to, because of all this, it allows you to troubleshoot a whole lot easier and faster. There's screen prints for us visual learners. I'm quite visual, and so the screen prints really help. And what I really, really like about it as an analyst is most of the white papers explain the tables that are being updated and explains the why and how of the setup. So you're understanding how the tables are getting populated and why some fields are very, very important. And last but certainly not least, as being advantageous to be part of what I call Camp CLE, is Andy himself. I heard one of his employees in the webinar just talk about they go above and beyond, and I believe they have inherited that from Andy. And let me give you just an example of the very latest thing that Andy has done, and we've kept up. He's one of my first resources when we're trying to find something, and we've actually used CLE & Associates quite a bit. But this last thing is fresh on my mind, and I had actually entered an SR for Oracle support, asking them if they had the implementation list that we had once upon a time in, and I'm going the Wayback Machine, I'm talking 2001. And I asked them if they still had that list, if they could get that to me. And they didn't know what this old timer was talking about. They had not a clue what I was talking about. So I called Andy, or actually I emailed Andy, and I asked him if he had a copy of this. And what this is it's a list of every step that needs to be done to implement a certain module. And at one time we had it at our fingertips, and I could not find it. So Andy, after a couple of resources, had told me, no, Sherry, nobody, has it anymore. And then the next thing I know, he's sending me another email stating, I love a manhunt. I'm going to find this for you. And the next thing I know, I have an email from Andy that he tells us old guys are good for something. And along with that email was an attachment of an implementation checklist. And I was just asking for a few modules, and this was a complete implementation checklist from one of his consultants that he has on his bench. So those are some of the reasons why I just keep sticking with Andy Cleese and CLE & Associates and JDEtips, because if you want to really get into the trenches and find out how to utilize your software, they are the people to contact.